Yeah, there's a concept called moral hazard that, a lot of people in government have no understanding of. I mean, people understand it in insurance. I mean, the insurance industry understands moral hazard. I mean, let's say, you have automobile insurance. The minute you have automobile insurance, you may drive a little bit more recklessly because you have insurance. If you had no insurance at all, you're going to be extra careful because you're on the hook for all the damage, right? Your behavior is always going to change. Look at the government with subsidized flood insurance. Why do a lot of people build in flood zones? Because the government subsidizes their flood insurance. If there was no government subsidy, flood insurance would be a lot more expensive. And so not as many people would want to live in areas that are prone to floods. But because the government comes in and says, no, you can get insurance that's below what the market would be. Now we have people building in flood zones. And so now every time there's a flood, there's a lot of damage. But without the government, people wouldn't be building in those flood zones. So we wouldn't have to worry about it. So the government creates the problem with the subsidy. Yeah, well, first of all, around the time of the income tax, we had a populist movement in the US. And, there were a lot of wealthy people back then. They call them the robber barons, Rockefellers, Carnegies, Mellons, people that became really rich, but not because of the Federal Reserve and because of a bubble, because they created enormously valuable companies that lifted the standard of living of the vast majority of Americans. Yep. But they deservedly got rich in the process without any help from government. But there was a movement to tax them more heavily. But the idea was that, hey, if we can make the billionaires pay more, the rest of us could pay less. So the trade-off was, let's have this tax that the billionaires will pay, an income tax, and we can get rid of the tariffs that everybody else is paying. And that was the impetus to amend the Constitution to make that income tax possible, because it wasn't possible based on the original Constitution. They had to change it to give the government new taxing powers to make it possible. But of course, if you look at the original tax rate, it was, I think, 4% or something like that on the super rich. Well, now middle-class Americans are paying 30, 40% in income taxes. I mean, nobody would have agreed to the tax if it was that high on the billionaires. But of course, it's backfired because now average people are paying income tax rates far in excess of anything contemplated for the billionaires. So that's the problem with the efforts today, where the government say, hey, let's have some new tax that's aimed at the billionaires. Well, pretty soon they're going to refocus on middle-class Americans. Whenever the government gets a new taxing power, they always get it under the guise that, oh, it's just for the rich. That way everybody won't oppose it. But the minute the government has the new power, it just doesn't, it's not limited to the rich. They could use it however they want. And ultimately they can't get enough money from the billionaires. So they go to the average guys because there's a lot more middle-class people to tax. But as far as inequality is concerned, look, there's always going to be inequality. Even in socialism, there's inequality. You have a few people that are rich and everybody else is broke. And the people who are rich are the people that are in government and they have connections and they have power because they know the right people. But under capitalism, we're all not going to be equal, because we're all not equal in our abilities, in our contributions, in our intelligence, in our drive. So people are going to have unequal efforts, unequal outcomes. And so obviously there's going to be wealth inequality. I mean, you want that. I mean, that's desirable. It's so like if think about it, if you were, you're a kid in school, what if everybody just got an A or everybody got a B? Everybody got the same grade, right? No matter how well you did on your exams, whether you did your homework or not, we had grade equality. So everybody got the same grade. Would anybody learn anything in school? No, why study? You're not going to get any better grade than the guy that doesn't study at all. But nobody would say, hey, it's not fair. We have this grade inequality. We have some guys that did all their homework and studied hard and they got A's. And here's some people that just, cut class and, smoked a lot of pot or, did, whatever. And they got C's and D's. There's inequality here. That's not fair. Of course, well, you get what you deserve. And in capitalism, you get what you deserve. You start a business, you invent a better mousetrap, right? You come up with a product that people want to buy. It improves their lives. Otherwise, they wouldn't buy it. the product is better than somebody else's. Either it's cheaper or it has more features. And in the process, you create a lot of jobs and you hire a lot of people. You get rich, right? Well, I mean, you can have another person that doesn't do anything, just, sleeps late at night, lives with his parents, doesn't do anything, doesn't create anything, doesn't produce anything, doesn't hire anybody. I mean, so, all right, the guy's, he doesn't have much money, but that's fair. What's not fair is when the guy that does nothing says, hey, I deserve more. Let's tax the guy that did all this stuff, that made all these contributions, because I want some of what he created. Because, I think that's fair, that I could just do nothing and live off the fruits of somebody else. But we have extreme income inequality now. That's not a byproduct of capitalism. What's going on now is the Federal Reserve, which is not a capitalist institution, has got interest rates artificially low so that people that have a lot of assets can now borrow money really cheap and buy more assets. And now all those asset values become inflated by the artificially low interest rates. So now the people who are just sitting on assets and doing nothing become really, really rich simply because they're sitting on appreciating assets that are only appreciating because of the artificial manipulation of interest rates. And now instead of selling those assets, they just borrow against them. They never have to pay the money back because the assets never stop going up. And they're living off of the inflation and the cheap money. At the same time, the inflation is destroying the value of average people's wages and savings. And so now you have government coming in and exacerbating income inequality and taking it to a level that is problematic, that would never exist in a free market. Because when you're getting rich in a free market, you're getting rich by enriching everybody else. So all the boats rise together. The government has basically prevented that from happening. So you have some boats rising while other boats are sinking. Capitalism doesn't do that. Government does that. And so people have to understand the difference. And so when they're mad because of what they're looking at, they've got to be mad at the right things. That's why if you go and look at the video that I did on Occupy Wall Street, when everybody was protesting Wall Street because of the bailouts, I went down there to say, don't protest Wall Street for getting bailed out. Protest Washington for bailing them out. If you accept a bailout, you can't blame somebody for accepting free money. Who wouldn't accept it? Government offers you money, well, you're going to take it. The problem is the government shouldn't have offered it in the first place. The government was the source of the problems, not Wall Street. So that's where the protesters should have been, in Washington, not in New York.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.